Hi everybody, I'm Rick Beato. Today's Everything Music is called What Bach and Charlie Parker Had in Common, which is octave displacement. And that's coming up next. Okay, octave displacement or octave dispersion, as it's also called, is a term used to describe an octave leap that's used to change the melodic direction of a scalar line. In the common practice era, when tonal systems were first formed, the principles of melodic motion were established by composers like Bach and also by music theorists like Johann Joseph Fuchs. Fuchs, whose book Gradus ad Parnassum was to become the most celebrated book on counterpoint theory. It was originally written by Fuchs in Latin in 1725, but then later translated into English by an Eastman professor, Alfred Mann, in 1943. This book established the same principles of counterpoint that are still being taught in music schools and conservatories today all over the world. But before we go any further into this, I need to define a term called cantus firmus. The cantus firmus is a single-line melody that's used as the basis for polyphonic composition, whether it's tonal or modal. It's the starting point in the study of species counterpoint. This study serves as an introduction into the principles of good melodic motion. One of these principles is how leaps or interval jumps are handled. Now, here are some of the rules for interval leaps from the common practice era. Rule number 1, it's acceptable to leap by a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and octave. Rule number 2, it's forbidden to leap by intervals larger than an octave or by a dissonant interval like a seventh or augmented or diminished intervals. Number 3, leaps of a fourth or larger should be followed by a change in direction, preferably a step, possibly a leap of a third. Leaps of a fifth or larger must be followed by a change of direction, preferably a step. Number 4, the cantus firmus should not contain more than 2 leaps larger than a fourth. Number 5, avoid 2 consecutive leaps in the same direction. Number 6, avoid more than 2 consecutive leaps. And number 7, avoid a large leap in the same direction as a preceding step. Did you get all that? Okay, it's actually much easier than that, as you will see from the examples. Okay, let's get started. Okay, octave displacement. Very simply, if you take a scalar line, let's say I descend down a D major scale from the root. Now, if I displace a note up the octave, let's say I go like this. Okay, that's octave displacement. I went. Instead of going down to this low F sharp, I went. Okay, that's octave displacement. That's all it is. Now, it typically happens, if you look at Bach or Charlie Parker or any of these rules that we were just talking about, typically happens on weak beats. And what it's used for is to make your lines more interesting and make musical lines, instead of being so scalar, to have some interesting interval jumps in them. Now, you can use it many different times. You could play... Okay, so I used it a bunch of times to keep the idea climbing. Now, all I was doing was a descending D major scale. Watch, so. Here's the octave jump from G up to F sharp, and I continue the line down. C sharp up to B instead of this B. Okay, then I'm on that F sharp, and if I jump. So there I'm using octave displacement with the scale, so the melodic line is actually descending right down a D major scale. It doesn't ever stop descending, but because of those interval jumps, it makes it sound like it's doing something else. This is how you take ideas and develop them more and more and more and make your playing a lot more interesting. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take a look at a Bach piece. This is Symphonia number 3. It's part of the 2 and 3 part Invention series. It's in the key of D major. I've taken the second bar out, and that's what we're looking at here. And it goes like this. So let's see what Bach would have done if he didn't use active displacement. It would have sounded like this. Well, if he did that, he'd be going into the other voices. Part of the reason to do this is not only to make it melodically interesting, but it's also to keep it out of the other voices, is to leave room for the other parts so he can develop some harmonic structures. So instead he goes, as opposed to, this is all over Bach pieces. You've heard it a million times. Bach uses this device constantly. It's part of, every composer uses it actually. This is these kind of interval jumps Bach will use all the time. And as you notice, they're always on weak beats. If they weren't on weak beats, they would sound strange. It would be like this. Now that really doesn't sound as good, and I actually didn't even play it that well. It's really odd to hear it like that because you're used to hearing these interval jumps on weak beats. Now let's take a look at a Charlie Parker line and check it out. Okay, let's take a look at this Charlie Parker solo. This is one bar from his solo on Anthropology. He's going from a G major 7 to an E7 to an A minor 7. On the G major 7, he simply plays right down from the 5th, and then he resolves to the 3rd on the E7 chord, then jumps up using active displacement up to the F, and then ends on the A minor on the 3rd. Now, he could have simply gone with a descending line like this, which would have been perfectly fine. But that line jumping the octave on the F is much more interesting. So this is found all over the place in Charlie Parker solos. Any of you that know Charlie Parker's playing, well, it's actually found all through bebop. Bebop is about these displaced octave notes like that. You could continue on lines like this. You would sound like bebop, like a bebopper. These kind of jumps, you jump on a weak beat, an interval jump. It doesn't have to be an octave. It doesn't have to be the next scale tone. It could be a 6th, and then you descend down from it. So. But when you use a real displacement of an octave where it would normally be, so, right? It'll start making your playing much more interesting once you start practicing this. Okay, let me show you a few 2-5-1 lines where I'm using this concept. This is going to be over a 2-5-1 in the key of G, so A minor 7 to D7 flat 9 to G major 7. On the D7 flat 9, I'm going to use the dominant diminished scale or the whole step, half step scale. So let's check out the first example here. All the lines begin with this on the A minor 7, and then the first one descends down in the D dominant diminished scale, then a chromatic up to the 3rd, then. So I did a couple chromatics on the G major 7 chord. I went from the 3rd, 7th, then passing tones down to the root, passing tone down to the 6th, and ending on an upbeat on the tonic. So, once again, it goes like this. So now I'm going to displace some notes in the second bar on the D7 altered chord, the D7 flat 9 chord, and the dominant diminished scale. On the 4th, 8th note, I'm going to move up the octave. So check it out. It goes like this. So what I did there was I played the beginning part the same, displaced up the octave. That's all the same. Here comes another one, down the octave. So instead of going, I went. So you can displace things, once again, both down and up the octave. So let's check out example 3. There's a little twist in here that I want to talk about. Now you'll notice that that line sounds awkward, and I did it on purpose. I displaced the note on the D7 chord. I went. It sounds like it doesn't really quite work. Had I gone like that, it would have sounded much better. I wanted to give you an example of a displaced note on a strong beat to show you that it's not strong. It may be on a strong beat, but it's not a strong move to make. Example number 4 begins just like example number 3, except down the octave. So the first measure is the same. That part's the same. And then it goes down, and then the next displaced note is up here. And then another one, and then I go down the octave. So I'm actually displacing down the octave on the G major chord. So when I resolve up to the third of the chord, then I go 7, passing tone, and then I go down the octave to the B. So it actually works in both ways. It can work where you're going down the octave as well. You can use this moving in either direction, displacing the notes in your line. So all these lines are exactly the same, note for note, the same lines, but once you displace notes, they sound completely different, because they are. The last example has a little twist to it. On the A minor 7 chord, I displace the note B. Instead of going, I go. So here's my different possibilities. The normal one, but this one's sounds completely different, but it's the exact same order of notes. Just moving those notes an octave totally changes the vibe. So there are 5 examples of using this octave dispersion to create more interesting lines and take one melodic idea and use it in 5 completely different ways to where the phrases don't even sound alike. Octave displacement also works really well on the guitar. Something I like to do as an exercise, really as a warm-up exercise, is to play a chromatic scale, ascending and descending, where I'm displacing certain notes. So let me take it from B flat here. So I'm going to play a descending chromatic scale. Check it out. So I played. Okay. Now if I play ascending, it's tricky. It'll really get your alternate picking chops together. Sometimes I'll just take the top 4 strings and practice this as a warm-up. You get a lot of really cool stretches and you get a lot of flat 9 intervals, which I love. You can also displace notes. You can practice doing this. Like, let's say I'll play an F major scale here. And I'll practice here. So there, I'm displacing notes, and I'm trying to keep running the scale and moving down after I play. And and try and keep that pattern going as long as possible. You can get into some really cool contrapuntal licks too. You having multiple notes moving at once if you practice things like that, like that's a beast of a line. That's two lines moving at the same time. So I've got then 6, that's an F major line with two lines. You have an inner line and an outer line. The inner line is, outer line is, inner line, outer line, then inner. Those are cool things to practice to kind of get your, not many people play contrapuntal lines like that when they're improvising. So, you know, even if you practice your major scale, so let's say you're playing a C major scale with this octave displacement, C, B, A, G. Now my next note would be this F, but I'm going to play F down here. Okay, so that's using the octave displacement. Da, 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 da. Okay, so I'm really thinking there. Da, da, ba, da, 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 da. That's a really good exercise to practice, but I think you can come up with some really great lines using that. That's all for now. Please subscribe here to my Everything Music YouTube channel and tell your friends about it. And if you're interested in picking up the Beato book, write me at rickbeato1@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Rick Beato.